Hey, it's Kevin again, giving you some more information on how to study and interpret the Bible. Instead of going right into phase two, there's some other aspects of observation that you can get from your study Bible. So I wanted to break up some small messages still in phase one on the observation piece of it. And today I want to talk to you about the simple aspect of understanding some background that you'll get out of the study Bible, specifically on the writer. All right, just a quick reminder where we ended last time, conclusions from the observation that we originally had, and this was just from reading it, some things that we know that we need to understand in order to understand Jeremiah 29 and 11. So first of all, the writing wasn't directed at me. Remember that. I need to understand my target audience. I have to get an understanding of why the NIV uses a certain word that's not in the other translations. And then understanding based on Jeremiah and his reasons for doing what he does, why he does what he does, so that we can fully gain an understanding of his purpose for writing and what he was trying to tell the people that he was writing to. The key to this, of course, is it wasn't directed at me specifically. So who is Jeremiah? Um, Originally, he's this young guy, approximately 17 years old. Some scholars say 13 to 16. He's called the weeping prophet or the crybaby prophet. We know him for that reason. He wasn't weeping and crying because he was scared about what he was doing. The reason he was a weeping crybaby prophet is because poor Jeremiah, no one would listen to him. No one would believe him. And no matter how hard he tried, this brought sadness upon him because people wouldn't listen to him. So that's why he's called the weeping prophet, which again starts to begin to ask that question. Then why would he write something like he wrote? Now, if you look in your a good study Bible, they're going to give you some things about his life that will help you to understand his writing, that will help you put the context of what he's writing in the proper place when you start looking at where it is within his writing. First of all, he was born a priest. He's actually a Levite. And you get this from Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 1. And what I love about a study Bible is it will keep you from you having to go through and read the entire book for yourself and then jot down every little thing that you see about Jeremiah to try to figure out who he is. All of this is already done for you, so you don't have to, reinvent the wheel. He was chosen to be a prophet before he was born, which speaks to God's sovereignty. He didn't have a choice in this matter. This was not about his free will. In fact, Jeremiah just wanted to be a family man. That's all he wanted to. But he was called to the prophetic office again while he was very young, and he was called by God. Now, that commission, being called by God and being appointed by God out of Jeremiah 1 9 through 10 is extremely important because there were prophesying schools at that time. And so there were people who were taught how to go and to prophesy to the kings and whomever was in charge. The thing with the prophesying school was these people were not appointed by God. They were not anointed by God to do what they were supposed to do. So what they were taught to do was basically give positive messages and to do them in a way that would convince people that because of how they said what they said, that they should have been believed. So if they had to foam at the mouth, fall out, roll their eyes in the back of their head, flutter, flutter their eyes, whatever the case may be, they learned how to do that to make people think that they were somehow divinely inspired in what they were telling them. So they were nothing more than really fortune tellers whose basic design was to tell people, yeah, you need to do what's right, but God has good things in store for you. God is going to bless you. You can go about doing your life. God has got something in store for you. So that sounds familiar. I almost think we've got prophesying schools today. He was forbidden to marry, talked about that, because the times were so bad. God told him, you can't get married. The times are bad. I'm bringing and raining down destruction upon Babylon. Upon Israel and Judah. You don't need to be married. Now, he never made a convert, and he was rejected by his people. And here are the verses for that. And I want you to notice that these verses from Jeremiah 11 all the way through Jeremiah 18, you find out that no one believed him. He was totally rejected for what he was saying. And then he was hated, beaten, put in stocks. You find that in Jeremiah 37:11 through 16. And remember that we're studying Jeremiah 29:11, where we get this really positive message. But before and after that, he's rejected. And then we see him hated, beaten, put in stocks. And then when you look at the totality of his life, even coming down to the end, his message broke his own heart early on. Jeremiah 9:1. I mean, he was the prophet of doom and destruction. And then, he wanted to quit, but God wouldn't let him. Jeremiah 20:9, he was ready to give it up. God wouldn't let him quit. And then he died in Egypt. And you see that in Jeremiah 43:6 through 7. And what's really important about that is if you go and study that whole aspect of how that happened, I mean, you look at Jeremiah's life and it was a struggle. It was difficult. How does God appoint someone to do ministry for him, and then this person have to go through so much? But if you study the prophets, you'll find out that this was not abnormal, for a prophet to go through a lot in order to present God's message. But basically, we get to why would this guy, why would he write such an encouraging word as we have here? For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to give you harm, plans to give you a hope and a future. Out of the NIV, we know we've got this particular version that we're studying from, and we'll look at other versions on next time. But what I want you to remember, he's the prophet of doom and destruction. So how would a prophet of doom and destruction say this to the people that he's writing to? And then if I'm reading it myself, and if I understand he's a prophet of doom and destruction, why would I take this scripture and immediately jump to applying it to myself? He's a prophet of doom and destruction. This has to come within the context of some kind of doom and destruction. So should I really be taking this on myself from that context? And so what we'll look at next time is I want to cover the versions because that's a part of observation. And we'll look at whether or not that word should actually be, um, should we understand it as being prosper, or should we look at it from a different perspective? All right, so I hope that gave you some background with Jeremiah. And even in understanding the writer, it helps us to understand a little bit better on how we don't take a scripture, read it, and not have any background, because that's part of the observation. What you can get out of a good study Bible will give you this background to help you to understand that you don't just pull it out and run immediately and apply it to yourselves. All right, until the next video, which will probably be shortly. All right, that was the video. You can stop it right there if you like, but I do want to give you some information in this video. I'm going to migrate the YouTube page. I'm going to create a YouTube page to get it off of my name, and I'm going to migrate it to something else. So just a heads up, when I do that, I'll give you instructions on how to subscribe.